Good morning. Happy
Morning.
Friday.
It is Friday. The weekend is
Ooh,
here. It's another week that has flown by. Just remember, when you start next week, you'll be in a new month, the eighth month.
yes. Yes.
Yes. My birthday month, so I'm gonna do the whole
Oh,
birthday,
come on,
whole month,
birthday month. Shadow
whole
says
month,
happy
whole month.
birthday.
What's up, Shadow? What's up? You gonna go get
Lord, as
some
he battling. But yes, good morning everyone. And as we are kicking off this vulnerability session, this vulnerability month, make
ice?
sure you drop into the comments any comments you have about this, any of your own perspectives, questions you may have about has vulnerability worked for you? Have you not used vulnerability because you're wondering if it's going to work? This episode is about addressing that concern. We saw so many drop us comments about it before the show even began. So this is on the minds of the people. So yes, make sure you let us know, and also let us know where you're coming from, where are you tuning in from, and if there's anything that you've ever wanted to know about vulnerability, being credible online, building your visibility. Make sure you let us know so we can put shows together for that and have that conversation with you. Good morning, everybody.
Absolutely. Let's get it in like Flynn. Thank y'all for tuning in. Rounding up the month, vulnerability month. Of course, we talk about it. Credible vulnerability moments. That's what we do. That's what we talk about. We enjoy talking about it. We enjoy the discussion. We also enjoy what you guys drop into the chat as well. So we're feeling a little early this morning. What's up, Rob? What's up, Will? What's going on, Quentin, Sonia? Good morning for checking in. How you doing as well? Um, we just ready to get it started. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Shadow made an
So
appearance. The black cat
yes, and
running
he
around
is
my
big.
franchise.
He is big, Rob. He's a grown man who about to get a job.
About to pay bills. About to pay bills.
Okay, you can't be grown in his house and wanting to shrimp and you don't work. Nah, we can't do that.
Man. Yes,
but
Gabe. We're gonna have a show on beard maintenance, Gabe. We gotta do one in there. We gotta do one in there. I told everybody the key, the key to it is the Afro Sheen. You gotta get the Afro Sheen with the pick. I don't have it. I'm in my office. I don't have it. It's in my bathroom. But you gotta get the Afro Sheen with the pick and the little fist. That's get a spray on there, gets that glisser, you know what I mean? Pick it out, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So that's
yes,
that's how you got
yes.
to get it, Gabe.
And as we are going through all the beautiful
Oh,
welcomes and messages,
NYC Upper West Side. Oh, Will living up there. He living up there on the Upper West Side. Hi, Will. We got to
well,
come do.
all the culture is.
Yeah, we got to come do some lunch or something. Will, I know it ain't gonna be no $4-5 McDonald's. So we got to.
Will, just like me, I'm on hiatus with him in this. We gonna do lunch. Unless he down the street, I ain't trying to hear it.
No, I might
So,
have to get up there with Will up in the Upper West Side. I might have to go to the Upper
oh,
West
oh,
Side.
I'm sorry.
Don't worry,
You know
Brooklyn.
what? We gonna have that. That's gonna be a back. That's
Don't
gonna be
worry,
a
Brooklyn.
backroom
I ain't throw you
discussion.
out like that, Brooklyn.
That's gonna be a
Brooklyn,
backroom
Brooklyn.
discussion. Brooklyn has some questions for you. But let's get into this
Oh
with the
man.
MythBuster about vulnerability
Yes,
and transparency are the same. Is that correct?
yes, yes. Vulnerability. Well, no. That's why I'm busting this myth because a lot of people think that when they're being transparent, it is just an extension of them being vulnerable, which is truly not the case. And I put in the comments early just to share a little bit with people. Vulnerability. It just means you. I mean, transparency. It just means you're being honest about your true thoughts and feelings. This is really what it is. I'm being transparent. Most people don't use transparency as the title for that. Most people just use blunt, direct, those kind of terms that we're used to. Most people take that on the offensive piece when people are being transparent. Most of the time, feelings get in the way of that because of how it's said, how it's communicated. Because a lot of times transparency is our truth, right? So we come off with that like, yeah, what I'm saying. Like, it's just an arrogance. I wouldn't say arrogance. Let me change that. It's just a directness in which we say that. And most of the time when you're dealing with people and they're direct with you, oftentimes that's a miscommunication of them being short, them trying to be slick. All the terms that we've in different cultures we've amassed or we've actually kind of congregated together to say this is what this means. But transparency is just being this is our truth for that. Most of you should be, if not all of you, should be transparency with what you're doing and showing on social media. With the essence of that, that should be your true thoughts, your true feelings, your true way of communicating who you are, what you are, what you represent. Even in the midst of your services, we ask companies and corporations to be transparent. Let's be true in things. Let's not tell me one thing in the onboarding interview that I find out later down the line that there was some things that was redacted. I didn't see those things when I signed this form. So those are the kind of things that we kind of associate with being transparent. With the vulnerability is it is sharing those things which could still be your truths and your feelings, but there's something that can put you, there's an opportunity there for someone to take those and put you at risk. When you're sharing your transparency, you're not really caring about the outcome. But you're telling people off the bat, yo, that's who I am, though. Deal with it, right? But when you're vulnerable, you're sharing essence of those same feelings, but those are things that are guarded. They're still true. They're still your feelings. They're how you feel, but you're sharing those things in essence to draw connection. You're sharing those things to in essence, to get some relatability to maybe the situation or the circumstances. You're sharing those things in essence to someone to be revealed, some things to be revealed in you that you may have seen in others. Maybe you want to help them. Maybe you want to communicate that to them. Maybe you want to use that as a process for you guys growing closer as a relationship. Those things happen, and that's the biggest difference. Now, mind you, they do work hand in hand because for you to be vulnerable, you have to be transparent. You have to let go of those things of which you holding on to. But the risk factor is what really is the difference between those. So when someone's saying, "Yeah, I'm being transparent," that's the same as vulnerability. No, it's not. It's not. So you can tell them Carl gave you the difference, right?
And it's the same as data dumping. A lot of companies are doing that,
Hmm.
thinking that when employees, customers are asking for transparency, that means just dump a whole bunch of data at them, confuse them, and then they'll be quiet. No, because people
Hmm.
see through that. You always in my inbox every 2 seconds is not transparency. You're just giving me all this information, and now I have to decipher how did this impact me. What is that to me? And being vulnerable is the same way. If you're just dumping your traumas on people, are you really being transparent, or are you helping them in a way? Are you showing that yes, I'm vulnerable because I'm telling you all these things about me? It's not the same. So you have to be careful and find a balance on that.
Yes, and it's definitely, and it's and I like to reiterate as well, being vulnerable is a learned behavior. And it's only learned through doing. Like a lot of things you can learn maybe about reading, don't necessarily have to do it. You can learn from someone showing you their examples of. You can even learn from maybe sitting in a class and getting the classwork connotation of it. Vulnerability is not like that. You're only going to learn how to embrace your vulnerability with releasing it, with engaging with taking the risk. And the funny thing about it is, right, we take risks with everything. I was talking to a cousin of mine yesterday, and this is right along those lines. He was going all in about, well, I was to him a couple years ago before the pandemic happened. We was talking about life insurance and him transferring his term to whole life and how you can use that and use the money in that and those kind of things. Most people are not aware of that process. So I was kind of calling myself teaching him on that. And he was like, "Yeah, I know. I just signed up and want to make sure I got my life insurance. So if I die, I'm good, right?" Which is 90% of how we think about life insurance, right? So, but yesterday he called me. He talked about a new car. Now it's time for him to get a new car. He didn't talk about all this research he done done, how he know the miles per gallon, how he know the because he's trying to do electric car, how he know how he is, where he got to get the pump at his house. Like he done all this homework on the car. Now, when he did life insurance, he just went with a name. Oh yeah, they sound good. He didn't do no homework, signed the policy, had the age to do it. I mean, sometimes in the essence of the transparency and looking at those things and delving in, we spend a lot of time looking at things and putting weight on things that's not really there. And I see that in the essence of we put a lot of weight on what happened if it doesn't work. What happened if I don't do it? Like if what happened to me? What wrong? What will go wrong with me sharing this? What will we take a lot of risks in everything we do, and everything that we take risks in, there's also an upside to risk, and vulnerability is no different. Actually, I think, and from me being from a live standpoint and experience standpoint, I think it toughens your resolve. I think it builds more self confidence in you. I think it also empowers you to be who you want to be, who you truly are, because you're not living in the shadows of what someone says that you are. And you're not living behind the premise of saying, okay, yeah, I know that's you. You can't put a label on me. You know, I always go back to Charlene, use that great analogy, and I think it's priceless. And it's also a classic. The movie 8 Mile. I mean, there's no other classic. If I was to teach a class on vulnerability, I would use that as my go-to segment. I really would, because the essence of, what was his name, Rabbit,
Yeah.
essence of Rabbit, embracing all of the things that were not necessarily wrong, because I grew up in environment. I didn't live in a trailer home, but I grew up in a south part of Chicago, and we wasn't too far from that, maybe a peanut butter and jelly sandwich away from being in that predicament. But I grew up in an environment like that, and it wasn't, so it's not like it was wrong where he grew up in. But the thing about it is, we have to embrace those things that are us. And that's where we get in trouble with vulnerability. We don't want to embrace the things that are us. And most of the time, we don't want to embrace the things that are first and foremost are shaky, or first and foremost, we are ashamed of. And he wasn't. He's like, you know what? This is what I'm gonna do, homie. What? You don't talk about my mama? No, let me beat you to it. I'm talking about when you talk about somebody giving a girl, I got you. Let me beat you to it. Now, your defenses are first of all up and you're empowered. And the
Mhm.
second thing you do, you disarm those who trying to hurt you. So that's how it works for me.
Yes, and Will brings up a great conversation that will take us into our
Yes.
first action step
Yeah.
about transparency from his point of view, and I agree with you, Will. Transparency as a term is so overused and doesn't feel real anymore. Like buildings who slap luxury rental on advertising to justify higher prices. And my thoughts is absolutely, because there's so many terms that get abused, and when I say
Woo.
abused, I mean abused, where anything and everything they want to pigeonhole that into transparency or transform what transparency is to fit their narrative, so they can either make a sale, um, do some type of service with you, and that's not what this is about. Transparency needs to be exactly what we say it is. It just needs to come natural to you. It just needs to, and that's a, to me, that's not even something that you need to learn. Transparency is truthfulness. And if you're gonna sit there and always try to hide something, because we learn how to hide, we learn to lie. Those are things that you learn. Transparency is not something that is a learned experience. That's something that comes out the gate when kids are always honest and they're saying everything and everything and anything that comes to their head or that they see. And parents are like caught off guard. But why are you caught off guard? The baby don't know to keep your dirt in the in the house. The baby just gonna talk. So if we learn from how the kids operate, they already operate from a standpoint of truth and transparency. So
Yeah.
that's, to me, is when you know, look, me just speaking and saying what it is, yes, I'm being out there, I'm being open. But I think what also people like to get confused is being mean about you saying what you've noticed or what you've witnessed or someone's behavior or anything like that. You being mean and nasty is not you being transparent. That's not you being honest. That's just you being rude.
Yes.
That's just you being rude. There's always a way to deliver information, and we need to learn as adults how to get back to that. What do you say, sir? And we'll get into the first
I
point.
definitely agree, and will. It definitely is that, and I love that too. The luxury rental. I learned a lot about that playing sports and the luxury tax, and kind of studying that with
Hmm.
law. They use that in the essence of, and we've all do that. I think a friend of mine told me, and Rob probably could bear this out too. My friend Ali, when we was doing a podcast a little bit over a year ago, he used to talk about how he's not from America, so he used to talk about how Americans always put together two words to create a new word and justify new meaning of two words that most of the time when they're put together mean the totally opposite. And he brought that to my attention. And me being a wordsmith, I never really thought about that, because we'll grab two words like oxymoron, or we'll grab two words that have totally different like meanings, right? put it together, and then now we have a clandestine phrase of saying this means this now with these two things. And this is sort of the route that transparency has taken on. And no, it's not learned behavior. A lot of times, embarrassment. I did that a lot as a youth. I would say things in the essence of what was going on in the house, and that's probably why I used to get beat like I did, because I was just transparent about what was going on. Somebody asked me about what was going on. So my grandmother used to ask me, and she used to say, yeah, Dad do that, Mom do that, and of course, Mom and Dad didn't want that to be known, right? And they would always say, yeah, what is you doing? Why is you telling that? Because transparency really is who we truly are. We've made these cages and these guards and these walls that we put up because someone has taken the transparency and it's been misused. So therefore, we're not allowing that. How that rubs the wrong way with that. So people do use that, and then they correlate it with the way that it's misused based upon how they want to get what they want out of it. These are a lot of things that we're talking about today that really put people in the shell of not being vulnerable about things. How's it being used against them? How is people trying to take advantage of what terms or situations are to fit their needs and their wants and their advances, right? So a lot of times people are not going to be openly honest with these kinds of things because they've been in situations where people have done them wrong in these kind of things. And it's only our human nature and our self-preservation to say, no, I'm not going to do that. It is justifiable. People say these terms and they use these terms and they're overused, and they're really overused to abusively to try to get your mindset to say they're offering more. Like
Right.
when people say I'm gonna be transparent, most of the time when they say that, I look out. That's just like somebody said, I'm not saying this to be rude, or I'm not trying to mean no disrespect. When people start out with those as their openers to the conversation, look for the disrespect, look for it to be rude, and look for them to come off the wrong way. And a lot of times we don't know how to operate with if we're not in 100. And
Yes.
I really have carried my life through trying to cultivate that. You have to be able to sit back, breathe. And one person that I used to love to do that, I know he got on a lot of people's nerves. I used to love to see how they used to come at Obama and how he would breathe. He wouldn't rush a thought, whether it was right or wrong. That's up for debate. But he wouldn't rush a thought. He would meticulously, slowly walk you through his answer. And regardless of however the press pushed him, or regardless of however the question was asked, he always breathed and went through it. And we have to learn that it's not so much his answers, but that respect of how we answer. Take a deep breath about what you're answering. Be able to communicate that not on 100. You be more respectful and it be more heard when people see that you can articulate even whether it be anger or happiness, or articulate your feelings through a way that's saying, this is how I feel. Though it's made me angry, I'm not at 100. And I guess I've learned that because you don't want to be an angry black man. That title gets slapped on you already. So I've learned how to
That part.
articulate. I learned how
That
to
part.
articulate without the anger. But
And
great, great talk, Will.
I'll definitely say to the
Oh,
question from
yeah, yeah.
Michelle is almost like a follow up. How can we relearn this? And part of that is what Carl just mentioned. Take a beat. If you're getting ready to have a conversation with someone, or you're in a heated discussion, or you're just in a way of you're trying to now introduce yourself or explain something, take a beat. If you see the first thing that's coming to your mind is, oh, well, to be transparent, no, stop. That's already one thing. We need to take that out of our vocabulary when we're discussing something with people, because like Carl said, if you walk up to someone and said, you know what, to be honest, they already are put on alert. That's how I know I've been. A couple of people that I know have been. It becomes a word that triggers us to now pay more attention to what you're saying, because either you're about to lie, or everything else that you said really wasn't how you felt, and this is supposed to be how you really feel. That's really what you're doing when you're telling people, let me be transparent with you. To be transparent, or to be honest, can I be honest with you? Things like that triggers people, and it started out that way, as that's how folks wanted to have the conversation. They wanted to draw you in. And if you ever notice, when people speak and their voice gets a little softer, and they trying to sound like they calm, but they, you know what? Can I just say something? A lot of times that's a trick. Why? Because now they want you to lean in. They want you because now as people we like, "Oh, I can't hear you. Is it me?" Like so you leaning in. Like, let me hear what you're saying. Those are tricks to get people to pay more attention to you, to feel more involved in what you're saying. So if you find yourself saying certain words to, I want to say, preempt your audience to what you're about to say, then that's you having to catch yourself and start to remove that behavior from your conversations. If you're going to be honest and you're going to be transparent about everything and anything that you do and how you behave, how you operate, how you move, you never have to use the word cannot be transparent. You don't, because everything you've done has been above the board from the gate. So a lot of it is also our behavior. Don't move in a way that you feel like everything else behind the scenes you have to keep secret, and then you can only, like, when you have to put up that big sheet in front behind you, and then let the people go crazy in the back of the sheet. No, you don't need to do that. You don't need to be that wizard behind that huge mountain of machinery so people don't see all the chaos going on in the back. Some of that is you being transparent. That, look, me running a business isn't smooth all the time. Me having to hire people can be frustrating because now, am I training them right? Are they just not getting it? Why are they missing this? When I ask them questions, it's not the same. It's just like, why even bother if you cannot sit down with yourself and understand, okay, this is what's going on. This I can share. It's not a company secret. You're not sharing your books. You're not opening your books online. Some people like to do that. That's cute, but not everybody feels the need, and that's okay. You don't have to open your books. You don't have to show everybody how much you bring in every day. That's not your purpose. That's not what you are there to bring people to you for. So that's what I say. When you're having those conversations, start removing the behavior of you feeling like you're hiding, and then start taking out those words, or catch yourself as much as you can to not say those things. Oh, can I be honest? Let me be transparent. And when I say, and I see, I just see LinkedIn user about, why would you start with a disclaimer? That's true. It's almost like you're starting off your conversations, everything that you say, with a disclaimer of, now I'm going to be honest. So were you lying the whole other time in the topic that we were talking about? Or are you now going to tell me the truth when you tell me, oh, this is me being transparent with you? Everything else wasn't you being transparent. So you want to kind of monitor how you're using transparent in your words, in your actions. And of course, you want to be careful of how you're using vulnerability as well.
Yeah, because you want to be, and that was an awesome question, Michelle. How do we relearn? Not only in the essence of transparency, because transparency is definitely can be a learned thing, but it should be an instinctive thing, which we really have, but we've learned to, as hurt becomes a part of our life, and which it is of everyone's life. There has to be a relearning there, and even in being vulnerable, there has to be a relearning there, and in the relearning, it comes with self evaluation. We have to learn or relearn ourselves, relearn the things that are triggers, learn those things that affect us in different ways. In working with me, that's what I carry you through in my program, understanding what moves you to your actions. This is where vulnerability becomes a weakness in our lives, because we associate it with how people treat us based upon who we are. And once we associate those two together, then we become a force field of saying, okay, all right, I'm not saying this, I'm not doing that. And that actually characterizes how we live. So this is why I go through the pattern of strength, and I walk my clients through that. Once you start getting the realization of these things becoming a part of how you live, you'll see how your life really is. You're not living a full productive life because there are places in there that you're sliding in crevices for safety, where you should be open and honest and ready to be evolving, ready to be growing, ready to be learning, taking advantage of failures, seeing what failures have taught you. But a lot of times we try to shield ourselves from those. So we have to relearn that openly and honestly, piece by piece. Start giving yourself out there piece by piece. And that's all up to you. I say that so many times, and I'll continue to say it. And vulnerability is individual. So it's not like I can put on you a piece of vulnerability that you're going to accept and say, okay, this is where I'm going to live. This is where I'm going to come from. It's not that. We have to learn what makes us tick. And a lot of times we have not sat down and done the work with that. A lot of times we are reactionatory. Okay, this is how I'm going to be at work because them clowns get on my nerve. Just say it plain. They get on my nerve. And maybe when Mary come with this foolishness, because she come every day, you're already setting up the stage for the confrontation. You're already setting up the stage for that. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, of course, we have a lot of them that we don't be, but that's already changing an atmosphere within you before you've even gotten to the place. You've
Mhm.
already curated how you're going to behave before you even engage Mary from prior experiences. I know you got some evidence to go on because this actually been. But how about change that? How about
Okay.
change and redirect? That's how we relearn. We change and redirect our responses, excuse me, to situations. Then we become to know how we truly are. Then we can get a gauge on what triggers me. What is it that Mary does that triggers me? That even causes this whole long thing that I go through every morning on the drive to work, knowing Mary's gonna be there. You see how much that's disrupted your life and not Mary's? You see how much changes that you've taken on that Mary has no idea about or don't care about? So these are the things when you're not being that way and letting vulnerability, I'm sliding right into that. We're letting vulnerability be your guide. These are the essence of that. And there are points and places of times where you're going to be able to see, this is not time. I'm not vulnerable with everybody all the time. Don't get it twisted. I'm not. I'm not.
Right.
But I know how to
And
delve it out.
Michelle, this is part of how you relearn. Is
Mhm.
part of it is allow the vulnerability to guide you through this process of you not always having to say or put a disclaimer on every time you're about to be honest with someone. Every time that you're operating in honesty, you don't need a disclaimer. So vulnerability allows you to know, am I comfortable saying this? Is something off when I say this? Am I nervous about saying this? That allows you to really ask yourself, why are you saying these things to people, and are you operating in good faith with them?
Yes, it is, and that's definitely it. Let it be your guide in the essence of let it guide your thoughts, let it guide your evaluation of you, let it guide your triggers. What triggers you? You have to take on this self evaluation so that you can get better because it's about us getting better. A lot of times we have this innateness in us to say, "Yo, I'm gonna help somebody else. I know somebody else need help." And a lot of times we bypass ourselves. And this is just the magnitude of who we are as humans. We always want to help someone else. I mean, have those rare occasions where people just really don't care about each other. But for the most part, they care about each other. And if you built these relationships, such as work related, such as family related, there's some work that's been done in these relationships. And you want to create and cultivate those where they can be of good use for both parties involved. So why not do that even in the workplace? I often say sometimes you spend 8, 9, 10, 12 hours at some jobs with these people more times than you spend with spouses, significant others, kids, children. You spend those times in there. But the key is absolutely knowing your triggers. I can't tell you how I'm gonna react if I haven't been in those situations, right? Because you have people that, man, if that would have happened to me, you have a lot of people say that. Man, I don't know. If that would have happened to me, and I was the one that said that. I used to sit down in the circles, boy, and my great grandfather and them used to tell us some stories about being in Mississippi down there in those times, 40s and 50s. Me as a little young, little brass, little black kid, man, they'd have had to kill me. I'd have beat them down and they'd have done all that. And my great
Facts,
grandfather used to tell
facts.
me all the time, you would have did just what we did. He said you'd have found somewhere, sat your behind down, and got out them folks' way and tried to live, right? So letting it
Yes.
be your yeah, letting it be your guide, right? We can talk about money quarterbacks is what we all try to do. we can talk about the things that we're going to do, but being the guide and letting it lead us and let us understand those things are good for us. Those are learning tools for us. Those are really empowering for us. When you know how you're going to react in a situation, you know how much power you control. When
Hmm.
someone can't stamp on you, okay, this I love when I get in situations where people expect me to be angry and out of control. I love those situations because I just kill them with, nah, that's really no, that's really not. Oh, I'm sorry. Was this what you was looking for? This the response? Oh, I apologize. It just didn't bother me that way. I
It
just kill them
tickles
with
me to do that.
just kill them. Well, people, you can just see the people. Just you can just see, like my grandma say, you see the devil all in them. Just see all in their face how they just like they
It's
just
like,
thought they was going to do that. Come in one time and Mary fooled around. Mary don't make no coffee. Leave the pot empty. No, you coming in for a cup. And Mary expecting you to just get attitude so she can get one, right? Mary don't come in and make no coffee. I'll walk right past Mary. Oh, okay. She didn't make no coffee. She won't get a response out of me. I'm pull the thing out, get the gristles, put them in there, make coffee. I'll make a cup.
better yet, I'll go outside and go purchase my coffee.
Oh
You
wow,
have a good
not too
day.
far. Oh no, not
You have a
myself.
good day.
Yeah. So sometimes, yeah,
But
Nicole, it's absolutely right. You got to know those triggers, and only knowing those triggers is you exercising that. You putting yourself in those situations, and that's what vulnerability. Yeah, giving them the blank look. I got you. That's what
yes,
vulnerability does for you. It puts you in those situations of power. That's why it's not a weakness.
and I wanted to, because there's another action item that I'm going to push up because you kind of mentioned it. When the environment isn't working, acknowledge that. Get
Yes.
out of that environment.
Yes.
Move out of that environment some way, shape, form, mentally, physically, whatever it takes. Because you fighting against that grain, sometimes the environment just isn't for you. It's just not for you.
It's not. It's not, and it's we have evidence of that a lot of times, and it doesn't even have to be in the vulnerability piece of that. We have evidence of the environment of where we try to push things to work, and it's not
Mhm.
that you have to push things in that and looking at it how it works in the environment. You have to regulate how that works because if vulnerability isn't working for you in that essence, it's not that vulnerability is not working. Those circumstances or situations, vulnerability is always working because it's teaching you whether to or whether not to. See, this is, but we always go on the learning side of not to. Well, I'm not to because that's the easiest lesson to learn. Don't do it. It's an easy lesson to learn for me, right? But there's more lessons on the other side of that. That's why I say on my website, go to my website. It's a big thing up there that there's something waiting for you on the other side of vulnerability. So sometimes that's the same thing with your goals, with the things that you try to aspire to. The work on this side, but once you go over the mountain, there's things that you're going to enjoy in the experience. And that's the same thing with the vulnerability piece. There are going to be obstacles that you're going to have to climb. There are going to be people that hurt your feelings. There are going to be people that step on your toes. Don't they do that now? With you
Ciao.
living how you living? Don't they do it now? And what's the gain from that? That's what I try to say. What's the gain from that? The gain from that is just no, the environment isn't working, but vulnerability is teaching me something. It's either teaching me something about this person, it's teaching me something about me, and it's also helping me to develop a resilience that says, okay, in this situation, I might have to have a tougher skin because they don't see it how I see it. And it's nothing wrong with that. That prepares you for the next person who you may open up to that same way and they be a fountain of resources for you. See, that's where the vulnerability piece is so key. And not only my training and development, but in my learning and living. It really is. You never know who holds the key to your success. You really don't. I like that, Rachel. Rachel say any other strategies to not get angry when certain situations, especially
Yes, and I
DEI
was
in the corporate world,
yes,
are
because
so infuriating.
I was gonna let you get into the transparency part and then
No,
circle
we go
back to
back to that.
Rachel because I think Rachel, you can give her a couple of steps, and I
Yeah,
think being transparent is part of that when you're
yeah.
in these frustrating situations because
Ooh,
a
yeah.
lot of times I don't know, maybe it's me, I feel like as soon as folks started to get comfortable with creating DEI spaces, it
Hmm.
also became a time to either um, over flood us with new terms, new strategies, and then expect everybody to just assimilate at once. And that is like almost, it's, to me, almost it has no flexibility or of time to learn. This, it's just here, here is how it is. These are the new expectations. Get down to it. And if you don't get down to it in a month, you failed. It's like there's no flexibility in that space to me. But Carl, this is your area, so please let me know. Being transparent, I definitely believe is necessary.
Yeah.
But how can we also help explain this part and then give Rachel some other strategies?
Yeah, Rachel, you hit it right on the head, and I do that in the DI in the DI space. Um, a lot of things in the DI space, and I'll put this out there first to kind of paint an overview. A lot of things in the DI space should be already happening. So this is where the push comes from. This is where the urgency comes from, because those equalities should already be. Remember the Constitution? Yeah, that part. It should already be there. So there is the push automatically for this to be taking place. So when you talk about the DEI, you talk about the terms that are used, a lot of those seem to be in the culture of an influx or a rush of a whole lot of information. Go back to the Constitution, go back to your history classes. A lot of this stuff that we talk about now was part of what was written in the Constitution, but it hasn't
Mhm.
availed itself into all parties. So this is where the connotation of, oh, now they talking about this now. No, actually, you've been talking about it ever since it was written, 1717 something, right? It's been written in that. So what we're doing now is engaging a behavior that has been consistently ignoring that for such a long period of time. So now when you put those two clashes together, the infuriation comes from those who know it should have been, and the misunderstanding comes from those who wondering, yo, why are you pushing this? Is all this new? It's because they haven't been educated on what we should have been educated or taught to them in the school systems of the
Mhm.
disparity of the DI part of that, the diversity, equity, inclusion. And that's along everything. I'm not even talking about the color part of that. I'm talking along everything that with handicap capabilities and those kind of things as well. The mental capabilities, those that don't have all of the same functions that we have, all of that is included in the DEI framework. So to top that off, that's the overview of that and why we have this influx now. Now, with everything that's happened in the world, there is a spotlight on things not right. Now, does that mean we having a grave about face and everybody's going to join board? No. That's why we still have the infuriating figures of, yo, you don't get this yet? Why are we still talking about this? Why are we still trying to get this push? Why do I still have to talk about equal pay for women and men? We doing the same job.
Right.
Your title the same as mine. See, that's where the frustration comes in from those who've been on the oppressed side. And I say it's oppression because it's just what it is. You're not of the
Mhm.
equal level of those on the other side. So there's an oppression that's going on there. So when you go into that, the strategies that you have to take is one of patience, though it's hard, but you have to take it as patience because this is unlearned skill that you're trying to teach the whole world. The whole world. It's only a few of us that agree with a lot of what DI says, right? And when I say that, I say a few, I'm just meaning in the millions of numbers. But the whole world has been taught opposite of what DI says, and implemented that in cultures, and implemented that in workspaces. So the fight of the strategies that you have to take is one of consistency,
Mhm.
one of calmness, one. I'll tell you a good example. I was dealing with a company a little while ago, and I was dealing with this guy who was over the team, and he had about 20 some people in his team. And he came to the thing, and I started talking about vulnerability thing, and he raised his hand and he said, "It's like, what if I don't believe in that?" He's like, "Cause I'm just a racist." He's like, "So how do you change racist?" I was like, "Wow." I was like, I don't think I was so. I wasn't taken aback because I kind of like, these things have happened to me before, but they normally happen in one-on-one conversations. I've never had someone to blurt this out in a Zoom of about 100 people. And though I'm not there to physically read them or read the
Mhm.
room, I still have to answer his question with the civility because I'm the one in charge. I'm the one running the workshop. I'm the one working the webinar. I'm the one disseminating the information that's needed. So I can't go to his level and me being African American, and maybe that may have been his thing to try to push it. But he said, I'm a racist and I run my department like that. So what you talking about? You gonna tell me about DEI vulnerability that I want to hear? And I just
Right.
went to the core of it. How did you get that way? Where did those thoughts come from? I put it right back on him. Now, I'm not going to explain to you about how to deal with a racist. I'm going to ask you, what was the core of that? Where did that come from? How did your thinking get to that? Who taught you that? Who told you those things were right? And a lot of times you have to switch the onus on people. That is a strategy that I love to use in the DI frame because it gets them to think out of the framework of how they've been thought, how they've been taught, and how they're used to thinking. So that's a good strategy. It's a wonderful question, Rachel. We do get
Yeah.
frustrated from that point because people, and Michelle hit it right on the head. I was just thinking that same thing. We get frustrated because people are choosing to remain willfully ignorant, and it suits them to do that because we've got a history that have played to that on their side. It's been a history of unfairness for the whole time the Constitution's been written. So,
Mm-hmm.
got a lot of work to do.
Because yeah, because for me, I think when I'm speaking of the frustration of implementation, that's where I'm talking from. Not the
Yes.
not the common sense of yes, we need to have equal pay and equal behavior across the board to everyone. If you did wrong, you did wrong. You did right, you get rewarded for it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm speaking to a lot of times as we're trying to fix one thing and we're putting out a mass cover and assuming that this mass cover everybody should be able to just suck it up and deal with it. You end up burning a lot of bridges when you cannot seem to say, okay, as I'm implementing one thing, because I see the foundational thing that's happening, the foundational situation. Let's try to fix the foundation so everything else can fall into place. We have to remember this is centuries of drama going on. You're not going to fix it in a month with one strategy or six strategies that you've been putting together. So that's where I'm seeing a lot of also frustration of the implementation of these things.
And that still piggybacks and rides on that same lineage of that same heritage of history. That
Mhm.
frustration on that, and it still comes from, and that becomes individualized because it's based upon the companies and corporations are pushing it out, and the people which that is going out to. That definitely makes a difference to how it's pushed out and how it's received. Because
Mhm.
yes, the ones most of the times the ones that you get are passionate about that. They didn't just wake up and say I'm passionate about it, right? So they fought these battles long before. I don't know if anybody that I've ever met that works in DI who just say, okay, I'll
Mhm.
pick this up today and this sounds good and I'm gonna ride with it. Most of the time, those that are doing that work, they've been in that fight a long time. Now, what does that do? Just like any other fight that you're trying to fight continuously, there's a frustration of your point not being heard, your point not getting
Mhm.
across. And though there are simplistic points of where we should be hearing and where we should be, the understanding is not there that the patience must take its perfect work for it to go. So how you took a long, it's just like creating habits, right? After you've done something for
Right.
such a long period of time, there has to be that same time and methodicalism in reversing.
Which I
Everybody's got
agree with
patience
you.
with that.
I which
Right.
I agree with you, but the
Yeah.
pay that's what I'm saying. There are some in that space that have no patience though.
Right.
And
And
that
that has to be
how do
weeded
we
out.
work with how that and that's where I'm
Yeah.
getting to.
Yeah. That
As
has to
yes,
be
there
weeded
it's
out.
frustrating for it's definitely frustrating for everyone and it's frustrating to implement, but we still need people to come in that space who have patience and who know yes, we see it changing, we see it's moving, it's not moving as fast as we would like. That's life. That's life of everything we do, but we still need to move with the caution of not burning those who do want to help and who do want the change. Because now when you burn down the entire house because six people in the house won't do what you say, don't you burn down everybody who's your ally as well?
But that
That's
that
what I'm saying to be careful on.
yeah, and you have to be, and that's as we say in the law field, it's case by case basis. uh,
Mm-hmm.
when you learn that and when you have those people involved and you have that. And the one thing that's really been a fail to that too, I'll add to that because we haven't touched on that. We haven't said on that. When we come to this part, there's no consistency. There's a delving in and there's a dumping of information. We have these one-offs. That's what I call them, because I've had a lot of companies I work with that I told them it should be a succession plan to what I've started.
Right.
And if you don't do it with me, that's not the problem. That's not the issue. You don't have to call me and I'll redo this every time. But there's a plan that I've left with you. There's a program that I've sat with you. And there should be a succession plan with that. There should be a follow-up with that. And there should be a continuous training go along with that. We
Mm-hmm.
do everything consistency except DEI.
Right.
Everything. Go through your corporate manuals. They from everything to you can't wear tank top and flip flops to work. They will consistently have those guidelines in there, and they will be
Right.
consistently enforced. But the
Mm-hmm.
things that DI allows the company to grow from, they are one-offs. I'm gonna invite everybody to this one-wide company-wide picnic, and we can talk about DI once a year. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
what are we supposed to do the other 364 days?
Right.
And all of these things are the melting pots of frustration. They are, not to say that it's right or wrong in the essence of doing that, but there are a lot of things that, and you're right, you don't want to burn up the house for 6 people. But what you have to do and what has to be curated, you have to get someone in there with the fortitude and the wherewithal to say, okay, it's a little work more with these 6 people. That's all it is. I got to be a little more patient with these 6 people, like I was with the racists. I ain't go on his neck. I ain't going. I want to know why would you? What thought process started that for you? How did you
Mm-hmm.
just wake up and say, "Yo, this is what I am. This is what I do. This is who I am." What started that? That was that mom? Was that upbringing? That was a culture? Was that how you were raised? Were you taught that in school? Give me a foundation and the origin of that.
Right.
Then we can work on it. Yeah, that's excellent conversation.
And
But
then
being
I
transparent is
also
necessary.
right, and I also wanted to say, let's not think that because you put something out, you have to get 100% approval.
Yeah, you won't.
No, absolutely not.
You won't.
Because Black Wall Street didn't come from 100% approval of all their neighbors. They did it because they knew they could. And
Mhm.
then they were forced in a space. They didn't go there willingly. They were forced in that space if you look at the full history of it. But they made the best of it, and they did what they could and thrived. And it's the external that brought that down. So, yes, there are people in this country who have been through a 400 years worth of trauma, and that does not get undone with 4 years of work. It does not get undone with a decade of work. So I think that's something else we have to come together, those who want the change, to one, be ready to leave people behind, because we talked about that. Not everybody can go with you. When you're ready to make changes and be vulnerable, not everybody's going to accept it. And you have to be willing and ready for that. And two, you have to be ready to start moving people out of your space. That's definitely what needs to happen.
Yes,
So,
it's a cleansing, it's a purging.
mm-hmm,
What I do, I give you an example. The 31st is coming up. That's my purge date for all connections and networking people who are in my circle on my LinkedIn page that does not offer anything to our relationships. There is a purging. I do it every month. Some people pass the test, some people don't. Uh, it's nothing personal. It's about me growing, and it's about you growing, and that's how we have to look at DEI. We're gonna leave some people back that's gonna be in the Stone Age. We just gonna we're gonna leave some people back that just won't change their mindset. They just say
mm-hmm,
that's how it's always been. I work with someone that continuously tells me and reminds me when he sees me, well, I wish we had the good old days back. I know what he's talking about. I, I, I know exactly what he's talking about. He had the good old days. Well, and then you really want to go further than that, but he know better. He's always going to, when y'all was in y'all place, when y'all stayed in y'all place, and y'all do. I mean, he wants to take it there. That's just how his character is. That's how he act. But I don't give him. I don't feed into it. Like, yeah, the good old days died along with the rest of you all after a while. That's what I tell him when he says that to me, and I just chuckle, and he just chuckle because we both know what we're talking about. But you're gonna have to leave some people behind to be growth. You can't bring everybody along with you. They become
right,
baggage, and baggage gets
mm-hmm.
heavy. So sometimes you got to get rid of it.
That part. So help us close out and wrap up the show for
Yes.
us today,
Oh,
sir.
yes. We had great conversation. Thank you, Rachel, Nicole, asking these wonderful questions. You guys come to the summit. We got the summit. Register for it. I thought it was a nice time to plug it. Nextlevelbusinessmove.com. Registration ends September 9th. You're going to get a lot of this and more in that. Also, you can work with me as well. The VTP, Shawn Watkins, .com/VTP vulnerability transformation program, where I go into a lot of some of the things that I've talked about here. It's a 4-week program that we go through, and we hit it hard. And yes, it is scary to be vulnerable, and it's scary to leave others behind, Michelle, but it is a necessity of that. I've had to leave family members behind because it just wasn't on the same boat I was on. So it happens. It's not nothing that we joy in, but these are the things that move us forward because it's about us being transformed. So you want to be transformed, register today, CarlShawnWatkins.com/VTP, 4-week intensive to transform even how you think in the DEI frame of work and in your own mindset. So yeah, so those are the things that we're working on. We appreciate each and every one of y'all closing it out. Yes, vulnerability and transformation are not the same. They're definitely not. Let vulnerability be your guide. Let it be the way that you are led. Let it be the way that you get empowered. Let it guide you. Being transparent is definitely necessary. Let people know how you feel about things. Stop hiding things. Learn how to articulate those things. Yo, this bothers me. You don't have to do it in a meeting with a whole meeting there and try to embarrass people. I've did a lot of times. I'll tell my boss after he said what he said in the meeting. I said, "Can I see you in your office?" Yes, you can see me in your office. Learn how to say it, learn how to talk about it, and acknowledge when the environment isn't working. So that's what it is, guys. We thank you guys for another great episode, another great month. And next month is August. So Charlene is going to be up top. She's going to be on tap. She got her stuff together. And we appreciate you guys. Come back and see us next week. Thank you. Have a blessed weekend.